Good morning, everybody. So, we have another glorious day that God has graced us to live on this planet here, and in that we should all be happy and rejoice. So, thought I'd do something a little different here for the next day or two. Uh, Still prepping, don't worry about that. But I thought I would kind of get a completely different viewpoint than what you and I have access to for the most part. Okay. Uh, y'all remember, a few weeks back, with the whole Navalny situation over in Russia. You remember this was the guy that was poisoned in Siberia, was in Germany in a coma for everything like that. And then when he went back to Russia, there were all sorts of protests. Well, obviously, I'm interested in what's going on in Russia. Mrs. Pinball's from Moscow, as you all know that. Okay, so we pay attention to what's going on over there too, because obviously she still has family and everything in Russia. Well, that led me to finding a YouTube channel called Letters to King. And if y'all haven't checked it out, you really need to. It's pretty cool. Well, I contacted Konstantin over there, and we started a 9,000 mile apart friendship here and discussing different things that are going on in the US and different things that are going on in Russia. And so, what I thought I'd do was ask him for a Russian point of view on what's going on in the world right now. I mean, politically, economically, I mean, about COVID, a whole nine yards here. All the things that we face and all the things that we're prepping for, and kind of getting that Russian point of view, what's going on in a country that has, completely different style of government, completely different style of economy, but of course is facing all the same problems. And just to get an idea of how they're handling it and what we may expect, considering the path that the U.S. is on, and what the World Economic Forum wants to take us on, and everything like that. So Konstantin had graced us with answering my questions in video format, and so y'all know that my video editing skills are terrible. So I'm going to do this as best I can to kind of put the interview all together in video format so you can watch it. It'll probably come out in two different videos because he gave some very articulate, very good answers that are a few minutes long, and I don't want to have you sit through 30 minutes of doing this, so I figured I'd break it up into two videos, make it a little more palatable so you don't have to listen to us for that long and really get bored, because he's got some really good information in here, and I thought you'd want to know it. So, without further ado, I thought I'd let Konstantin introduce himself.
Hi Pinball, hi everyone. Thanks for having me here. My name is Konstantin and I run a YouTube channel where I explain how it is to be living in today's Russia. I will answer a few questions that Pinball asked me, and hopefully you will find them interesting. First of all, I'd like to thank Pinball for having such a great channel. I caught myself lately thinking that I watch his channel more and more because a lot of issues resonate with me. A lot of issues I agree on with Pinball's opinions, and I think he talks about important, very important stuff. So thank you so much, and I hope you continue producing great content.
Thanks, Konstantin. I think you give me a little bit too much credit there, but no, appreciate the compliment. So tell us a little bit just about you as a person, who you are, your background, everything like that, and so everybody can kind of get to know you like I've already got to know you.
A few words about myself. My name is Konstantin again. I was born and raised in Soviet Union, Russia. Then at age 20, I moved to the United States, to the state of Maine, where I spent about 10 years. Moved back to Russia. about 15 years, 17 years ago, and close to a couple years I spent in Uzbekistan, then close to a year in Ukraine. So, I studied both in Russia and in the United States. I studied economics and political science. So, on many things that Pinball talks about on his channel, I have my own opinions, and they're quite educated. So I've seen things. I have my own outlook on many things, and today I'm going to share my outlook on a few topics that you might find very different from yours and interesting. I hope you find it interesting. So thank you again, and let's go.
Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about, Konstantin, is food. Okay, here in the U.S., we're seeing occasional shortages in things. I've mentioned a few times on my channel about hard times finding corn or beets. We've had uh, milk shortages in some places, et cetera. So, we're seeing the shortages occasionally on some items, but what we're really seeing here is a lot of increases. So what I want to ask you about here is, the prices and the shortages in Russia. What's going on these days in Russia? You know, the the images we get over here, and you know them as well as I do. Uh, especially of the old Soviet Union, of the bread lines and everything like that. Uh, obviously that's not the case anymore, but I wanted to go over there. Like I've told you, and like everybody else knows, I went over to Moscow back in 2015 when I met Mrs. Pinball, and at least what I saw, when we went to the grocery store and everything, the groceries were all full and, different foods and everything. But the thing that surprised me the most, and again, this was 6 years ago, was the prices were very much the same in Russia as they were in the United States at the time. Now, I know that the wages in Russia are significantly less than what the wages are in the United States. So obviously it's something we need to watch. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I know that you talk about food, possible food shortages, inflation, future inflation in your videos a lot. And that's a great topic. First of all, I'm not novice to food shortages. I was born and grown up in Soviet Union, and I've seen that. I've seen that before, and I've done that before. When I was a teenager, my responsibility in the family was getting food, procure food, like bread, basic stuff, bread, potatoes. So I would stand in line almost every day. So I know what the food shortages are. In Russia, since 1990 up till 2020, we did not have any food shortages. Pretty much just like the United States. Farmers markets, large food stores, small next door moms and pops food stores, plenty of choice, plenty of supply. That all changed in March 2020. I remember the day. The first case of COVID-19 was reported in Moscow, and people kind of went into panic mode. I went to a large food supermarket, the one I usually go to get my food, only to see lots of people hoarding everything. I couldn't believe my eyes. The people would buy in bulk everything that could last, like pasta, salt, sugar, canned meat, canned fish, porridges, buckwheat, things like that. Well, I did two things. The first is I started hoarding food myself. I have family of 5, 3 kids, and myself, and my wife. And, I need to feed them every day. So I started hoarding everything I could get my hands on. I got myself a pretty healthy supply that could last for 3 months, in my estimation. And then I did the second thing. I grabbed my camera and I started filming the store with empty shelves. I uploaded it on YouTube on my channel and people loved it. That so far it's been my most viewed video. Um, wow, I thought, things finally changed. But 3 days later, the suppliers and producers stocked back stores with so much food that people couldn't buy for months after that. So our food shortages, not really quasi shortages, they lasted only for 3 days. 3 days later, March 20th, the stores were full more than ever of buckwheat, of salt, sugar, canned meat, and everything else. I think all store owners and the manufacturers were absolutely delighted to sell so much food in such a short time. They certainly make their sales plans. So, ever since, we have not had one single problem with food supply here in Russia. It's been exactly 1 year. This is February of 2021, and not one single thing has been missing. A lot of my friends from America questioned my honesty and were saying, you're just trying to make Russia look good by saying that you don't have any problems. But how is it possible that we having problems here in the USA and you're fine in Russia? Well, I grabbed my camera in late April and I went around local stores filming what they had on sale. And there was business as usual, plenty of everything. Right now, there's plenty of we having much less money than a year ago, but food, no problem with food whatsoever, no shortage. Food prices is a different story. They have gone up. Russian economy is down the drain. It's been falling down for past 6 years, and last year has been disastrous. Well, COVID-19. Uh, Russians get poorer by the day, and they spend more and more of their budget buying food, but the prices have gone up too, significantly, from 5 to 20% on selected foods. I would say 10 to 15% on average. The food costs more than a year ago. So shortages, no, we don't have any. We haven't had any in the past year. The food prices, oh, they have gone up.
Well, it's good to hear you guys don't have food shortages. Okay. The prices, yeah, I did a video the other day and where the US Department of Agriculture here is saying, oh, we should expect to see 1 to 2% increase in food prices here. All of us know that's complete hogwash. Okay. So if you're telling me you're seeing 10 to 15% on average, that's pretty much what we're predicting here too. And at least us, not, the government, of course, is not, they're saying, oh, everything's fine, just like probably what you're hearing. But, we see it when you go to the grocery store and, you know, pull out the cash and pay for the groceries. Like, this costs a lot more than it did last time. So, all right, but thank you for that part. So the next one I wanted to ask you is travel. Okay, and we all, know around the world you've got Qantas Airlines saying you can't get on an airplane without having the shot or whatever. Countries are closing down the borders, except of course for our southern border. That's fine. I guess COVID didn't hit Central America and South America because those people are just allowed to come in freely. Uh, but there's been rumors and talk about us having, and you've seen it in some other countries too, about vaccine passports, internal passports, and we all wonder how long it's going to be in the United States before we have to have something like that to travel interstate here. Just to go anywhere. I mean, I live within 45 minutes of the Kentucky border and the Virginia border, and I'll go up there sometimes for things, not a problem. So, can you tell us a little bit how COVID has impacted the travel for everybody there in Russia?
Well, hasn't been traveling within Russia hasn't been impacted much. Russian government aka the Big Brother, has been watching us closely for decades, and we are quite used to be under the microscope anywhere we go, every single, not even day, moment. Lately, the government has installed new systems of face recognition and 5G, so they know everything about us traveling. We don't even need to be stopped by police to be recognized because we have our cell phones. And Russia has implemented 5G Chinese network, and they're kind of following Chinese footsteps, where they're very tightly controlling their citizens. So they know all our movements. Within past year, there were a few changes in how freely we could travel in Russia, but they were connected to COVID-19. Back in March and April, well, more like April and May of 2020, there were severe restrictions on how Russians could travel within Russia, how we could travel within our own country. The COVID hit Russia hard, and there was panic, there was uncertainty. People didn't know what to do, and the government didn't know what to do. We were all like, what do we do next, And the government was trying to contain this pandemic, and they decided to limit ability of people to move from one state, one province to another, and from one city to another, to make sure that they don't spread COVID-19. Well, I fled Moscow because we live in Moscow, but we have a second home south of Russia, about 650 miles, where we have a house, all right, second home, we call it, but it's really a large house. So Moscow is 24 million people city, and I figured that if we get stuck in Moscow, wouldn't be able to get outside, then it's pretty bad. I wouldn't want to be stuck with like hundreds of thousands of neighbors, literally, people, hundreds of thousands of people living all around us, right? So we packed and we fled to Rostov, down south, really, really fast. I figured I could make it before the complete lockdown, and the complete lockdown followed. It was very strict. We were locked down in the city of Rostov-on-Don. We couldn't get out of the city, only for the good reasons. For example, to take care of elderly relatives or parents, to go to a hospital, things like that. They were special permissions for some people. Of course, all the government officials had special permissions. The state prosecutors, KGB, judges, the politicians, no rules for them. But for the rest of us, there were rules, of course. They were roadblocks. I took my son Michael to my parents who live outside of the city every morning, and I would bring him back every night. I managed to get through the roadblocks. I was stopped a couple times. I explained them where I was going. No problem there. So, not much. This situation, this quarantine, this limit was lifted in mid-May, and then we went back to normal, being able to travel within the country anywhere we wanted to go. We must carry our passports, internal passports, at any time, anywhere we go. But we are so used to that, to having this form of ID on us, that we don't consider that a nuisance. It's totally normal for us. Ever since we've been able to travel within Russia freely, and the government always watches us, of course, but they have not limited our ability to travel. And of course, Russia has been sealed off from the rest of the world almost for a year. You can only go a few places, such as Turkey, England, Zanzibar, I believe, a couple more countries, and that's about it. And then foreigners cannot come to Russia, positively cannot come to Russia, only through special permissions of the KGB for, and the reasons, they must be good.
Yeah, we went through similar lockdowns here last year, and it's funny that you mentioned, being in Moscow and getting out to Rostov-on-Don, uh, because that's a big worry of a lot of people here too, is the fact of being in the big city and having somewhere to go. I mean, fortunately, as we call it here, a bug out location, you had somewhere to go to. So, I mean, that's, definitely something, that I'm glad you have over there, where you've got somewhere to get out of the city, because you have 24 million people. I thought it was like 18 million last time I knew. So Moscow's still growing like crazy. Uh, but yeah, now again, talking about the internal passports and things, that's what we wonder if it's going to start coming here. So, very interesting to hear your take on that. So, I'm going to wrap it up for this video here. I guess we'll just do the second set of questions in the other two or three that we have in a second video, just because we don't want to make this a half an hour long deal. But guys, Letters to King, find him on YouTube. Definitely a channel worth listening to get a different perspective on what's going on in the world. So, thought I'd give you part one here. Let you guys process this one, and we'll do part two tomorrow with a little bit more uh, questions on the Russian perception of the world and how it relates to prepping. So have a good one, you guys. Thanks, y'all. Pinball out.